Okay, let's just dive right in. If you're a founder trying to scale your business, especially from that tricky 7 to 8 figure mark, you've probably got a shelf full of business bestsellers. But what if I told you the advice in those very books is the exact thing holding you back? Today, we're going to talk about everything you need to unlearn to actually grow.
Now, this might sound a little dramatic, but honestly, it's a feeling so many of us founders have. You do everything you're told. You hustle, you build systems, you find your why, and yet you're still stuck, totally overworked and just overwhelmed. It's a special kind of burnout.
And look, don't get me wrong. Books like The 4-Hour Workweek, Traction, The E-Myth, these are popular for a reason. They're packed with smart ideas. The problem is, when you're trying to make that critical leap in scale, applying their advice literally can send you down a really frustrating and expensive path.
So that's the big question we're tackling. What if all this well-meaning advice is actually the problem? We're going to break down the biggest myths from these bestsellers, figure out what you need to unlearn, and ultimately get you on the path to building a business that doesn't need you in it 24/7.
All right, let's kick things off with our first big myth, the productivity myth. This idea, pretty much championed by David Allen's classic, Getting Things Done, has become like a religion in the business world. It promises clarity and control, but for a founder, it can be a total trap. The book's whole philosophy is about capturing, clarifying, and organizing every single task. And that's great if your main goal in life is to hit inbox zero. But here's the hard truth. Most founders don't need a better system for managing tasks. What they really need is fewer tasks to begin with.
And this slide, this is where it all clicks. Your job as a founder isn't to be more productive. That's an employee's job. Your job is to create leverage. The legendary Andy Grove said it best. The output of the leader is the output of the team. Your goal isn't to do more, it's to do less, so your team can do way more without you being the bottleneck for every little thing.
And speaking of leverage, that leads us perfectly into our second myth, the leverage lie. This one was made famous by the incredible promise of the 4-Hour Workweek. I mean, who doesn't love that title? It sold this dream of ultimate freedom through outsourcing and automation.
The dream of hiring a bunch of virtual assistants to handle everything sounds amazing, right? But here's what the book doesn't really tell you. When you hire people just to do tasks, you're not getting rid of your to-do list. You're just swapping it for a much more complicated to-manage list. That isn't freedom. It's just a different kind of prison.
So here's the big mental shift you have to make. Stop trying to hire an army of inexpensive helpers. Instead, focus on hiring a few true functional experts, a head of marketing, a head of sales, people who are actually, and this is key, better than you at what they do. They don't just complete tasks, they own entire outcomes. That's where real scale and real freedom comes from. Okay, this brings us to our third major hurdle, and this one is a biggie, the systems mistake. This comes from two absolute titans of business operations, Traction and the E-Myth. Both of them preach the gospel of systemization, but the way they tell you to do it can be a disaster in practice.
Traction has this seductive idea that founders are these special visionaries, the big idea people, and you can just hire an integrator to handle all the messy day-to-day stuff. It's kind of like telling your spouse, "Hey honey, I'm a visionary dad. I'll handle the fun parts like planning vacations. You can do the diapers and the bills." We all know how well that would go over. It doesn't work in a family, and it sure doesn't work in a business.
And this quote just nails the problem. You can't hire one magical person to fix a company that doesn't have a solid operating system. You, the founder, have to build the foundational systems first. Then you can hire a great operator to run them. If you do it backwards, all you get is an overpaid, very frustrated executive assistant.
And that brings me to the E-Myth. Oh man, I tried this, I really did. I read the book on vacation, got super fired up, came back, called a big all-hands meeting, and proudly announced, "We are going to document everything." I thought it was genius, but then I looked at my team. Half of them looked offended, like I didn't trust them, and the other half looked terrified they were about to be replaced by a binder. We spent a month creating these beautiful procedure manuals that nobody ever looked at again.
So what's the unlearned lesson? It's this: you don't document everything. Because when you try to document everything, you effectively document nothing. Instead, you focus on the critical few. These are the 10 to 20% of your processes that are high stakes, highly repetitive, and have a high chance of human error. That's it. Focus there. That's what actually moves the needle.
All right, on to our last big myth for today, the purpose problem.
This one gets into the real heart and soul of your business, your why and your people, and it's perpetuated by some huge bestsellers like Start with Why and Who Not How.
So Who Not How tells you that for any problem you have, the solution is just to hire the right person, which is technically true, but it's not helpful advice. It's like telling your lonely friend to solve their problems by just marrying a supermodel. I mean, yeah, that would work, but the problem is A players have options, and they do not want to work for broken companies that need fixing. And then there's the Start with Why myth. Look, Simon Sinek is incredibly inspiring, but this idea that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, it ignores a pretty important fact. An inspiring mission has never, not once, covered payroll. The hard truth is, nobody cares about your why if your product is terrible. Great brands are built when your why aligns with your customer's why, not the other way around.
So after tearing all of that down, you're probably wondering, okay, smart guy, what should I actually be reading? Well, let's pivot to a few underrated gems that give you practical wisdom for scaling a business the right way.
First up, The Goal. This book teaches what I think is the single most important concept in business, the theory of constraints. It's a fancy way of saying that all your strategy is just about one thing, finding the single biggest bottleneck in your business and throwing all your resources at fixing it. Best part, it's written like a novel, so it's actually fun to read. Next is The Art of Profitability. This is such a fantastic practical guide. It breaks down the 23 different ways that businesses actually make money. I make all my managers read this so we can have intelligent conversations about our own business model and find new ways to grow. It's simple and it's absolutely brilliant.
And of course, you have to read Peter Drucker. He is the GOAT of management thinking. Start with Managing Oneself. It's a tiny little book, but it's the ultimate playbook for self-awareness and good decision-making. You simply cannot manage other people effectively until you can manage yourself. After that, pick up The Effective Executive.
And finally, okay, a quick shameless plug. After going through this whole painful process of unlearning myself, I ended up writing my own book. It's a super practical playbook that shows you how to build those critical few systems and hire the experts you need to actually get free. It's basically the guide I wish someone had handed me when I was starting out.
So, at the end of the day, what's the big takeaway from all this? For me, it comes down to this simple idea. So many founders are reading to get inspired. They're chasing that next motivational high, that next clever hack. But I don't read to get inspired anymore. I read to get free. I read to build the systems that create actual freedom. And that's the question I really want to leave you with. The next time you pick up a business book, ask yourself, is this book just going to give me a temporary shot of inspiration, or is it going to give me the real tools I need to build something that lasts, something that truly sets me free? Because the answer to that question, it'll change everything for you.